My billionaire grandfather left millions to everyone in the room. My father got 5 million, my brother got 2. Even distant relatives walked away smiling. And me? I was handed $50. Not 50,000, not a symbolic inheritance, just 2 crisp bills slid across the table like I didn't matter enough to explain. My brother laughed out loud. My father smirked like his favorite prediction had finally come true. Someone whispered, "Figures." I said nothing, but something inside me knew this wasn't an insult. It was a message. Because my grandfather was never careless. Not with money, not with people, and definitely not with endings. When I tilted those bills under the office lights, I noticed something strange. A tiny scratch near the serial number. Almost invisible, almost meaningless. But my grandfather used to say, if you want to hide something valuable, hide it where nobody bothers to look. That sentence echoed in my head so loudly, it drowned out the laughter still ringing in my ears. And 1 hour later, inside a quiet bank office, everything changed. Growing up, I was never the loud one in the family, never the favorite, never the one people expected to win. Not because I failed, but because I didn't compete for attention the way my brother Ethan did. He filled rooms with noise, confidence, and charm. People praised him for ambition, for boldness, for leadership. Me, I was described differently. Hazel is quiet. Hazel is gentle. Hazel doesn't make trouble. What they really meant was, Hazel stays out of the way. But my grandfather, William Carter, saw something different in me. To the world, he was a billionaire tycoon, a man whose name made bankers nervous and politicians polite. But to me, he was just Grandpa Well, a man who believed silence revealed truths louder voices tried to hide. And when his health began failing, everyone suddenly remembered he existed. They visited quickly, briefly, strategically. My father stopped by between meetings. My mother brought flowers she never arranged herself. Ethan came once, stayed 10 minutes, and left smiling like nothing had changed. But I stayed. Not for money, not for praise, just because someone had to. One night in the hospital, while machines hummed quietly around us, he squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. "Hear what?" I asked. "The silence," he said. "Most people are afraid of it, but you're not." I didn't understand then how important those words would become, because even as his body weakened, his mind was planning something no one else saw coming. The funeral looked perfect. Black suits, white flowers, expensive silence. Everyone played their roles flawlessly. My father spoke calmly. My mother cried at the right moments. Ethan accepted condolences like he had personally earned them. And me? I stood alone in the back, invisible, even in grief. But the whispers around the room told the real story. How much do you think he left? Must be worth a fortune. Ethan's life is set. No one mentioned my name, not once. Days later, we gathered at the law office for the will reading, the moment everyone had been waiting for. The lawyer cleared his throat and began. 5 million to my father, 3 million to my mother, 2 million to Ethan. Each number landed like thunder in the room. Smiles were carefully hidden, but impossible to erase. Then came my name. Hazel Carter, $50. Silence. Then laughter. Not shocked laughter, satisfied laughter. The kind people make when their expectations are confirmed. 2 bills slid across the table toward me like a joke nobody needed to explain. And that was the moment everything began. Not ended, began. Most people would have thrown the money away or stormed out in tears, but I remembered my grandfather's lessons. Look closer. Details matter. Inside my car, sitting alone in the parking garage, I studied the bills again. That tiny scratch near the numbers wasn't random, it was deliberate. 3 digits marked on one bill, 2 on the other. 5 numbers total. My heart began pounding. This wasn't money, this was a code. Within minutes, I found myself driving to the one place my grandfather trusted more than anyone, his old bank. The lobby was silent, polished, intimidating. I walked to the desk and said words that changed my life forever. I need to speak to the branch manager about William Carter. They took me into a private office, and when the manager examined those bills, his expression changed instantly. His face went pale. He locked the door. Then he looked at me with something I had never seen before: respect. These markings, he said carefully, are not random. My breath caught in my throat. They're verification codes. And suddenly, the $50 in my hand didn't feel small anymore. It felt powerful. Minutes later, he opened a private security box hidden deep inside the bank. What I saw inside made my knees weaken. Gold bars, legal documents, investment portfolios, property titles, and one handwritten letter with my name on it: Hazel. My hands trembled as I opened it, because deep down, I already knew. This wasn't about money. This was about truth. "My dear Hazel," the letter began, "if you're reading this, it means you noticed what others ignored. That tells me I chose correctly." Tears blurred my vision as I read. "I gave you $50 not because that's what you deserved, but because I needed you to see their reactions, their laughter, their silence, their true faces. Money doesn't create character, it reveals it. And in that moment, every insult, every dismissal, every quiet sacrifice suddenly made sense. He hadn't forgotten me, he had trusted me. But the real storm didn't start until 3 days later, when my family discovered the truth. They showed up at my door without warning, demanding answers, demanding money, demanding control, because suddenly the quiet girl they ignored had become the most powerful person in the room, and they didn't know how to handle that. That was the night I finally said the one word that changed everything: no. Not loudly, not angrily, just clearly. And for the first time in my life, silence became my strength instead of my weakness. 3 days. That's all it took for the truth to leak. Not publicly, not loudly, just quietly enough to spread like smoke through cracks nobody noticed at first. I was still replaying my grandfather's letter in my mind when my phone started lighting up nonstop. Unknown numbers, missed calls, voicemails stacking faster than I could delete them. I didn't listen to any of them, because deep down, I already knew who was calling and why, but I didn't expect them to show up at my door. It was early evening when the knocking started. Not polite knocking, not hesitant knocking. Sharp, loud, demanding. The kind of knock that assumes the door belongs to them. I walked slowly to the door and looked through the peephole. My father, my mother, my brother Ethan, all three of them standing there like they had rehearsed this moment on the drive over. I took a slow breath, then opened the door. "Hazel," my mother said immediately, stepping forward like nothing had changed. "We need to talk." Not hello, not how are you, just business. They walked inside without waiting to be invited. My father's eyes moved quickly around my apartment, scanning everything like he was calculating value. "You kept things modest," he said casually. I didn't answer. Ethan leaned against the counter, arms crossed, smirking like he was watching a show. "So," he said, dragging the word out, "guess Grandpa didn't forget you after all." There it was, the reason they came. Not concern, not love, money. "Why are you here?" I asked quietly. My father didn't hesitate. "We know about the account," he said flatly. The air changed instantly. I kept my voice calm. "I don't know what you mean." He scoffed loudly. "Don't insult us," he snapped. "Someone at the bank talked. We know it's worth millions." My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Sweetheart," she said softly, reaching toward me, "we're family. We should handle this together." I stepped back. That small movement said more than any words ever could. Ethan laughed. "Come on," he said. "You don't actually think you're keeping all of it, do you?" Something inside me went still. Not angry, not scared, just clear. "You laughed at me," I said quietly. All three of them froze. At the will reading, I continued, when I got $50, do you remember that? Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Did any of you defend me? I asked. No one answered, because they couldn't. That's not the point, my father snapped finally. It is, I said calmly. It's exactly the point. My mother's voice trembled. Hazel, your brother has plans, investments. This money could help all of us. There it was. Not love. Need. Always need. I walked to my desk and picked up a folder. When I placed it on the table, the sound echoed louder than expected. What's that? Ethan asked. My grandfather's legal instructions, I replied. My father's jaw tightened. You planned this. No, I said quietly. He did. I opened the folder and slid the documents toward them. This account is protected, legally separated from the will. No one can access it but me. Ethan's smirk faded. My mother's eyes filled with panic. My father looked furious. If you don't share, he warned, we'll challenge this. I nodded once. You can try, I said calmly, but there's a clause. The room went silent. What clause? Ethan asked. If anyone contests the will, I said slowly, they lose their inheritance. The silence that followed felt electric, because they remembered. They had heard it. They just never thought it would matter. You wouldn't, my mother whispered. I already am, I replied. My father stared at me like he didn't recognize the person standing in front of him. Maybe he didn't, because this version of me didn't shrink, didn't apologize, didn't explain. Finally, he turned toward the door. You'll regret this, he said coldly. Maybe, but regret only comes when you betray yourself, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't. They left without another word, and when the door closed behind them, the silence felt different, not empty, free. At first, the distance between us was quiet, subtle. Phone calls stopped, group chats disappeared, invitations vanished, birthdays passed without messages, holidays came and went without acknowledgement. I would be lying if I said it didn't hurt, because loneliness doesn't arrive loudly, it settles slowly, like dust. But something else settled too. Peace. Weeks turned into months. I kept my life simple, quiet, intentional. I didn't buy expensive cars, didn't post online, didn't announce anything. The money stayed untouched, protected exactly the way my grandfather wanted. Because the truth was, I didn't want wealth, I wanted safety. Nearly a year later, everything changed again. It happened on a rainy Tuesday morning. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and warm blankets, and in my arms was my daughter, Lily. Tiny, fragile, perfect. When the nurse placed her in my hands, something inside me rearranged forever. I looked down at her small face and made a promise without speaking. You will never have to shrink to be loved. Never. My parents didn't visit. No flowers, no calls, no messages. And strangely, it didn't break me, because holding Lily, I finally understood something my grandfather had known all along. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by presence, by loyalty, by love without conditions. Years passed quietly, not dramatically, not loudly, just steadily. I built a life the way my grandfather had lived his, simple on the outside, strong underneath. I invested carefully, protected everything, donated quietly to women who needed legal protection, women who had been told to stay silent, women who were afraid to say no, because I knew exactly how that felt. Sometimes people ask me, do you regret not sharing the money? Do you regret walking away? I always give the same answer, no, because regret comes from abandoning your truth, and for once, I hadn't. My grandfather didn't leave me $50, and he didn't just leave me millions. He left me clarity. He showed me who would laugh when I was humiliated, who would stay silent when I was dismissed, who would only show up when money was involved. But more importantly, he showed me who I became when I stopped asking permission to exist. Now, when I watch Lily laughing without fear, growing without conditions, I understand what the real inheritance was. Not wealth, not revenge, not validation. Peace. And peace is worth more than every dollar he ever saved.
5 years passed. Not dramatically, not loudly, just steadily, like quiet water carving its own path through stone. My life didn't become flashy, it became peaceful, and peace turned out to be the rarest thing money could buy. Lily was 5 years old the day everything came full circle. It was a warm Saturday morning, and sunlight filled our small kitchen. She sat at the table coloring with crayons, humming to herself, completely lost in her own little world. I watched her from across the room, coffee warm in my hands. She laughed suddenly at something she had drawn, and that sound, pure, fearless laughter, filled the house in a way I had never known growing up. That's when the knock came, soft this time, not demanding, not impatient, just hesitant. My heart skipped once, because deep down, I already knew who it was. I walked slowly to the door. When I opened it, my father stood there alone. No mother, no Ethan, just him. And for the first time in my life, he looked smaller, older, tired. The expensive suits were gone, replaced with simple clothes that didn't fit his old image of power. His shoulders looked heavy, like he had been carrying something too long. "Hazel," he said quietly, not sharply, not confidently, just quietly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Lily's voice came from behind me. "Mommy, who is it?" He froze. His eyes shifted past me and landed on her. My daughter, his granddaughter, and something in his expression broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just silently. "I didn't know you had a child," he whispered. I nodded once. "She's 5, I replied calmly. His voice trembled slightly. "She looks happy." That word stayed hanging in the air between us. Happy. Something I rarely looked growing up. "Why are you here?" I asked. Not angry, not cold, just direct. He swallowed hard before answering. "I came to apologize." The word sounded unfamiliar coming from him, like a language he had never practiced before. I said nothing, because apologies mean nothing without truth behind them. "I was wrong," he continued slowly. "Not just about the money, about you." My chest tightened slightly, but I stayed silent. Let him speak. For once, he needed to say it. "I laughed," he admitted. "I stayed silent when others mocked you. I treated strength like weakness and kindness like something disposable." His voice cracked slightly. "And I lost everything that mattered because of it." That sentence hit harder than I expected, not because it hurt, because it sounded honest. "Your brother left," he continued. "Your mother moved away last year." The words came slower now. "Our family didn't survive what we became." There it was, the truth. Not dramatic, not loud, just real. Behind me, Lily tugged gently on my sleeve. "Mommy, can I go play outside?" I looked down at her smiling face and nodded. "Stay in the yard," I said softly. She ran past him without hesitation, without fear, without knowing the weight of the moment standing at the doorway. And as he watched her run, tears filled his eyes. Not fake tears, not dramatic ones, quiet ones. The kind people cry when they realize what they lost, too late. "I didn't come for money," he said quickly. "I didn't come to ask for anything." He looked at me carefully. "I came because I realized I never told you something important." My heart beat slower, waiting, listening. "I'm sorry," he said again, but this time softer, more real. "I should have protected you. I should have stood beside you. Instead, I stood against you. The silence between us stretched long, heavy, meaningful, and for the first time in years, I saw him not as the powerful man from my childhood, but as a flawed one, human, breakable. Forgiveness isn't something that arrives suddenly. It doesn't appear like lightning. It builds slowly, like trust, brick by brick, moment by moment. So I didn't rush, didn't pretend, didn't erase the past. "You hurt me," I said quietly. "Yes," he whispered. "You laughed when I was humiliated." He nodded slowly. "Yes." "You stayed silent when I needed you." His voice broke. "Yes." There was no denial, no excuses, no blame, just acceptance, and that mattered more than words. "I can't change the past," he said. "I know. But I want to be better before I run out of time." That sentence hit deeper than anything else he said, because suddenly I remembered my grandfather and the quiet lessons he left behind. I looked toward the yard where Lily played, laughing, free, untouched by the pain that shaped my childhood. And in that moment, I understood something clearly. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about refusing to carry pain forever. "You can visit," I said finally. His eyes widened slightly. Not relief, not celebration, just quiet gratitude. "But slowly," I added, "carefully." He nodded immediately. "Yes, slowly." He didn't step inside that day, didn't push, didn't demand. He simply turned, walked down the steps, and left. And somehow, that mattered more than if he had stayed, because for the first time, he respected my boundaries. Years later, when Lily grew older, she asked me a simple question. "Mommy, what did Grandpa really leave you?" I smiled softly, not because of the money, not because of the revenge, but because of the truth. "He left me courage," I told her, "to stand up when others wanted me to stay small." She tilted her head. "And money?" she asked curiously. I laughed softly. "Yes, some money too. But that was never the real gift, because the greatest inheritance my grandfather left me was clarity. He showed me who people truly were. He showed me how silence can be stronger than shouting, and he showed me that love, real love, never demands that you shrink yourself to earn it. Now, when I sit quietly at night, watching Lily sleep peacefully, I understand what my grandfather meant all along. Wealth fades, power disappears, reputation changes, but peace stays. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's living well without the people who once doubted you.